awesome peeps, how you going? Sorry, I just shook my camera there. Here we are with our mental toughness tip for the week. And I had all these plans to do a totally different one, but this one has come up for me, so I'm just going to roll with it. Today we're going to call today's mental toughness tip your feedback filter. One of the tips that we delivered last year was to take on feedback. We also put that tip up in the newsletter that went out last week as well. And taking on feedback is an extremely important part of growth. It's a very important part of what we do and how we become better. For me, as I run a business and as a coach, be that mental toughness coach or fitness coach, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm always open for feedback. And my personal policy is all feedback is good. What that doesn't mean, though, is that I have to take on the feedback that is given. And so I have a filtering process that I put my feedback through. And basically, when somebody offers up feedback, there's several things going on. Most of the time, people genuinely want you to improve. Some of the time, it's more about them and less about you. And, it's part of growing and what we're doing and becoming better at what we do. We get to learn whether or not what somebody else is saying to you is actually relevant or not. So my feedback filter process is, the first question I ask myself is this about my ego? Am I feeling hurt or offended or whatever? And then if I'm feeling those things, it's a pretty good chance it's about my ego. And if it is about my ego, then I actually really need to listen to what's going on, because sometimes your ego can have a negative effect on what you're doing. It can get in the way of progress. So that's my first question. Is it about my ego? The second question that I ask is and this is about the person delivering the feedback. I don't actually ask the person directly, but this is just the filtering process. Is it about their ego? Because quite often, when somebody is offering feedback, it's actually got nothing to do with you, and it's all about them and their ego and their need to be heard. So that gives you another piece of information. So you can go, is it about their ego, yes or no? And that then, leads you to a question. If it is about their ego, then you can still ask the question, is this relevant to what we're doing and the situation upon which the feedback was given? If the answer is yes, then we continue with the feedback. If the answer is no, it's actually not relevant. This person really was just genuinely having an explosion and needed to deliver some information that's actually completely irrelevant to this situation. One filter process done. And I do my very best to just move on from that situation and leave that to the side. If it's relevant and if it helps me grow, then ego or not, we take it on board and we decide our next action step as to whether or not we need to change our behaviour or what we're doing or products that we're selling or the ways that we do things in sporting events and that kind of stuff. Let me give you an example. Here in my business, we run sessions for mums, functional training sessions for mums, and of all the feedback I've been given over the years of running these sessions, I have had one person, give me some quite negative feedback, call into question my professionalism and qualifications, and that really hurt, because these things are very important to me. It hurt my ego. I got offended. And it took me a good week and a half to actually sit down and put these statements that this person was saying through my filtering process and to work through it. And, the conclusion I came to was that this particular individual, it was all about them and their ego, and they actually genuinely didn't understand our process here and what they were doing or what we were doing. And this was the way they did things. And so the feedback itself that was given, I took it on board, I listened, I understood what the client was saying, and then what I did with it was to say, okay, well, this particular client isn't actually part of our niche market. This particular client isn't the client that we want in here, because we are not delivering a product that is perfect for that client. So I don't believe I need to change what I'm doing because of the feedback that was given. Now, this is not a process that took a day. It didn't take 5 minutes. It quite literally took me a week and a half to get over that. And for the biggest part, I had to sit down and go, Joe, of all the hundreds of people who've walked through your studio, only one person has delivered this kind of news to you. You've got to remember that. Because, my ego took a pretty big blow. I like to think I'm awesome. I like to think that what we're doing here is fantastic. And when somebody says that it isn't, you kind of go, oh, you're shattering my dreams. One person out of hundreds. I don't need to change my entire business program because of one person. If I'd had 10 people coming in saying exactly the same thing, maybe I need to change what I'm doing. Okay, then I need to sit down and look at my processes and look what I'm doing and take on that feedback. So you've got to put it through your feedback filter. The other thing that I recommend you do when we're talking about feedback is have an open discussion with somebody you trust over this information. Because you, particularly if it's hurting inside, particularly if it's something that is very dear to you and you're just not able to process this information, you need to talk with somebody who you can trust, who to be able to say to you, yeah, mate, you know what, pull your head in. That's your ego. You need to change this process. Or, on the other side of that is this trusted person could also turn around and say, you know what, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. This piece of information is not necessary. You don't need to do this change. But put it through a filtering process. Talk to somebody you trust about it. 2 heads better than one when it comes to these things. And it applies to everything and everyone. Feedback is feedback, no matter what you're doing. If you're in a sporting situation, an office work situation, a business situation, a coaching situation, a parenting situation, okay? It's the same thing. When you get feedback, filter it. Check for ego, yours and theirs. Check whether or not changing your current behaviour is good, bad, or indifferent. If you're not sure, ask an honest and trusted friend. And that is my tip for this week. So that goes hand in hand with take on feedback. Put all your feedback through a really good, healthy feedback filter. Thanks for this week, guys. We will see you all next week with our next mental toughness tip. Bye for now.